Dr. C. Murali Krishna garu. Dr. C. Murali Krishna is presently a professor and UGC SAP Special Assistance Program DRS, Departmental Research Support, Deputy Coordinator, Department of English, Osmania University, Arts College of Social Sciences, Hyderabad. Formerly, he was Professor and Head, Department of English and Coordinator, English Language Teaching Center, ELTC, Nizam College, Autonomous. He has around 28 years of teaching experience at the UG, PG, MPhil, PhD levels. During 1997 to 2004, he has worked in PG College, Secunderabad. He has published 21 research articles to date and has presented many papers at international and national conferences, seminars. Has been an editor and an author and has published 16 books, some of which are widely used by many institutions in different parts of the country. Has been a resource person, trainer, and given guest extension lectures in many institutions, including prestigious ones like BHEL, NTPC, AP Judicial Academy, Research Center, Imarat, RCI, DRDO, UGC academic staff colleges, universities, colleges, where he has given more than 140 lectures. His thirst. Sorry, power is off. His thirst areas are communication skills, LSRW, study and soft skills, presentation skills, fluency training, ELT, and British, American, Indian literatures. Thank you. Over to Murali Krishna, sir.
Yeah, am I audible? Good morning to everybody.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning to the management, the principal, and the staff from the Department of English and other departments of the Kakatiya Institute of Engineering. Thank you for inviting me to be the resource person here. I see that more than 100 people are there on the line and trying to listen to the proceedings. I welcome all the people from different parts of the state and the country who have gathered today online to undergo this kind of a exposure and training in writing related matters. Today, I've been asked to talk about what are the features, what makes exactly, what are the features towards that contribute towards effective academic writing. So academic writing, as the name suggests, should be and must be and is different from non-academic writing like creative writing or something like slogan writing or headline writing. Writing for non-academic purposes have a different tone and tenor, and writing for academic purposes would call for a different kind of a discipline on the part of the writer. As this preceding introductory lecture, madam suggested that, yes, it apparently looks an easy job, but it isn't, because it calls for a lot of sub skills to be able to write effectively, and more so in academic context. So academic writing in that sense is very clearly different from non-academic writing. And today we will look at what contributes towards good, effective writing. Let me share this PowerPoint with you. Even as I'm talking, you can also read. Can all of you see this slide? Can you all see the slide? Hello?
No, sir. No, sir. We can't see the slide.
Can you see the slide?
No, sir.
You can't see? Okay.
We can't see.
Okay, 1 second.
Excuse me, sir. Start presenting the screen.
Yeah.
Vinay Kumar sir, present screen.
Yes, 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 sir.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Now it is visible.
Is it
Visible, but slide show.
okay? Can you see it now?
Yeah, full screen.
Okay.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Okay.
Sir.
Okay, thank you. I'll. So as the title slide suggests, it's effective academic writing, and let me give you. As I said, it's different from non-academic writing. Now, in this first slide, you'll see that academic writing in English, academic writing can take place in any language, but we are here more in the context of the English language. So academic writing in all languages, more so in English, is linear. It has got a certain linearity. There are no digressions, there are no deviations, very focused kind of a writing, which means that it has got one central point or a theme, with every other line contributing to the main argument, and without any digressions, repetitions, or deviations. So that's the first point. And the objective of academic writing is to inform, more to inform rather than entertain. In fact, its objective is never to entertain. Incidentally, if you get entertained, that's a bonus. But basically, its objective is to disseminate information, knowledge, and it is in the standard written form of the language. It never does an academic piece of writing use non-standard kind of a language, whatever be the language. So this is my introductory slide. I'll move on. Can I go to the second slide? Can I move on to the second slide?
Sure, sir. Sure.
Yeah. One audio can be kept open for interaction. The others can switch off the audios. One person who is monitoring can interact with me. So I'll move on to the second slide. Now, there are 8 basic main features of academic writing that people often discuss. We'll also discuss today with some interesting examples. The 8 features of academic writing are complexity, formality, objectivity, explicitness, hedging, responsibility, precision, and accuracy. In other words, the academic writing is complex. It's not simple. It's formal. It's never informal. It's not subjective, but it's very objective. That's objectivity. It's not implied. There's nothing implied. It's all explicit. And these days, another fresh kind of a feature is hedging. You use a certain very cautious language instead of using a very authoritative and very overconfident kind of a tone. You use very cautious language in making certain statements in academic writing. That's called hedging. And there is also a sense of responsibility. The idea of supporting your argument with some evidence, quoting somebody, and also there is it's never imprecise. It's very precise, and that's how we call this feature as precision. And in terms of figures and accuracy also, in terms of language, no ambiguity. So precision and accuracy, they take care of ambiguous kind of sentences, the vague kind of figures. So these 8 features, if they are taken care of, then your academic writing will be very, very effective. Now, let's discuss the first feature, complexity, in detail. F1, complexity. Feature 1 is complexity. Now, written language is relatively more complex than spoken language. Now, most academic, like academic language is written. That's why we call it as academic writing. So, and written language is a lot more complex than spoken. Even in academic context, when you speak, there is a tendency to, break certain academic writing kind of norms. You are able to repeat, you are able to restate. So spoken academic language is different from written academic language. So more complex, written language uses longer words and lexically more dense. Words are a lot more dense. They are not simplistic words, and it is a more varied kind of vocabulary that you use. And like, for example, it uses more noun-based phrases and rather than verb-based phrases. And the written texts are shorter, and the language has more grammatical complexity, including more subordinate clauses and more passives. So when we say subordinate clauses, we are talking about complex sentences where there is one independent clause and one dependent clause. And all these are expressed mostly in the passive voice, because the focus is not on the doer but on the action or the outcome of a certain event. So this is one way to look at academic writing. It's very complex. Now let me give you some examples of complexity that are common in academic written text. Now I mentioned noun-based phrases. Noun-based phrases, for example, when you say the 12-member jury, bench of judges consisting of not 3, 4, but 12 members. So you call it as the 12-member jury. With a hyphen, you write. And this kind of noun-based phrase, noun phrases are used more rather than the verb phrases in academic writing. That's one feature that contributes to complexity. The second example is subordinate clause. It's also called the embedding, where one sentence, one clause is dependent or subordinate to the main independent clause. For example, he did not respond to the call. Now that's an independent clause. Because he was preparing for the interview. Now that's an dependent clause. So it's a subordinate clause. So you use complex sentences like this. He did not respond to the call because he was preparing for the interview. The results could not be announced because the research was still being carried on, something like that. Then you have also the use of complement clauses, clauses that complete what is said earlier. Complement here is not COMPLI, but COMPLE, that which completes what has been said earlier. He never expected what? He never expected that she would come. But that she would come is a clause that is called as a complement clause. So again, this kind of a complement clauses are used. Then sequences of prepositional phrases. There are a series of prepositional phrases that one tends to use in academic writing, like the car on the bridge, across the river, near the village. So you see these prepositional phrases like on the bridge, across the river, near the village. So all are prepositional phrases coming one after the other. And this is part of a noun phrase also. The whole thing can be seen as, because it's not a sentence, the whole thing is an embedded noun-based kind of a phrase consisting of a prepositional phrase within that. The car, on the bridge, across the river, near the village. Then, of course, in academic writing, you also use lots of these participles like eating, having eaten, cooked, having slept, swelling, swollen, having swollen. And the use of passive verbs like was killed, was shown, has been introduced. So the focus is not on the doer, but more on the action or the result. That's how there is a tendency to use more of passive verbs in academic writing. I would request the participants to, if you have any doubts, to just make a note, and at the end of my session, we can have 5 to 10 minutes for clarifications rather than taking questions now. Is it clear? Hello, is it clear? Hello, is somebody responding?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I just told them
Yeah.
that some of the doubts, if they have clarifications, I'll be giving some 10 minutes at the end of my lecture. We can use that 10 minutes for discussion. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We have the query session, sir.
Yeah.
So,
yes. Yeah, I'll move on to my next slide now, participants.
Okay, sir.
Now, complexity we were discussing. It also is marked by lexical density and lexical complexity. Lexical words, dense kind of words, complex kind of words. The complex example, the complexity of the transaction defies my logic. The use of the words like complexity itself, transaction, defies my logic. So this kind of a dense vocabulary.
Sir, excuse me.
Yes.
Sir, excuse me, sir. I request Karthikeyan, sir, to stop presenting. Sir, you are interrupting the session. Karthikeyan, sir, please stop presenting.
Is he presenting? I think he just needs to mute his audio.
Yes, sir. Please mute your audio, sir. Audio and video too.
He is still presenting. Karthikeyan, please stop presenting screen.
Please understand you are interrupting the session.
Karthikeyan.
Yeah, but we don't hear him presenting. He just kept it open, is it? Audio?
Yeah, but the presentation is not visible to us, sir. Your presentation is not visible. And Sapna Pandey is also still presenting the screen. Please don't click on present now.
My presentation is not visible now?
Yes, sir. Your presentation is not visible. Someone named Sapna Pandey is presenting her screen. So please stop presenting the screen.
No, you tell them precisely what they should switch off. The video or the audio.
Sapna Pandey, the option is right at the top of your screen. Stop presenting the screen. You just click on that, madam. Sapna Pandey.
Okay, you can also, I think somebody who is monitoring this, they can also mute. Vinay,
Sir.
from your side also.
Okay, sir. No, it's okay. Now it's okay, sir. You present your screen, sir.
No, you have the option, I think, that you can always mute somebody if they have not, if they have forgotten to mute.
And one more thing, sir. Someone named Harish Hari. Your video is on since the starting of this meeting. We have been repeatedly calling you to switch off your video. Okay, sir. Okay, we will go ahead, sir.
Can I go ahead?
Yes, sir. You can go ahead.
Yeah.
Start presenting this.
Yeah. So, yeah, coming back to our presentation, participants. Now we were discussing complexity as one of the first features in academic writing. And we've seen how lexical density is there, and the use of noun phrases, use of passives. And there's also nominalization. Nominalization is, like changing a verb or any other word into a noun. So most of the verbs or other words are changed into nouns. That kind of a action you get to see in academic writing. Like formal written English uses nouns more than verbs. For example, you say judgment rather than the verb judge. You say development rather than the verb develop. Admiration rather than admire. So changing a verb or other word into a noun, this is called a nominalization, and you will find that this nominalization tends to lend complexity to academic writing.
Excuse me, sir. I'm very sorry for interrupting again. So we cannot see your presentation, sir. It has been stopped.
Is that so?
Yes, sir. Very sorry to interrupt you, sir.
Now? It says your screen is still visible while someone else is presenting. Click here to return to the video call and resume your presentation. Okay. Can you see my video?
Yes, sir. Your video is visible, sir, but not the presentation.
Now I'll
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, sir.
you can see now?
Yes, sir. Okay, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, we were talking about, can you see the screen now? Hello?
Yes, sir. Go on. Yes.
Can I increase the size? Is it all right?
Yes, sir. Okay, sir. It's clear.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So nominalization lends complexity to academic writing, and the nominalization is nothing but this whole tendency to stop writing verbs and use them more as nouns, like judgment for instead of judge and development instead of develop. I'll move on to my next slide. There is also the use of attributive adjectives in academic writing, which lends again its complexity. And these attributive adjectives come before a noun. As such, they ascribe a certain characteristic to a noun by preceding it. For example, I admired the pretty sky. Now, sky is a noun, and it is being preceded by the word pretty. So in this example, pretty is not only an adjective, it's an attributive adjective because it came before the noun sky. It comes before the sky as a pointer towards towards its attribute, that it's very pretty. The sky is beautiful. So you use this kind of attributive adjectives. Then you also use adjectival groups as complements. An adjective group is often the complement in a clause after a verb such as be. For example, in a sentence, her behavior seems slightly odd. Now, slightly odd is the adjectival group which is coming after the be form seems. Now, seems here is a be form. So, slightly odd is an adjectival group. So, you use more of such phrases, and that also adds to the complexity of the writing. Now, some more examples of complexity. The very eminent linguist Halliday compares a sentence from a spoken text with a typical written variant. Now, in the first paragraph, you have the spoken text. It goes like this: you can control the trains this way, and if you do that, you can be quite sure that they'll be able to run more safely and more quickly than they would otherwise, no matter how bad the weather gets. A typical speech kind of a style. Now compare the same content in a typical written variant. The use of this method of control unquestionably leads to safer and faster train running in the most adverse weather conditions. So you see the use of phrases, dense vocabulary like unquestionably, and use of adjectives, and also participles like running in the most adverse, again adjective and double adjective there, and weather conditions. So you have adjectival phrase, adjectival group there. So this is typical written academic writing. The main difference is the grammar, not the vocabulary. Even vocabulary difference is also there. Vocabulary is always dense, but lots of grammatical difference you will find between the spoken and the written academic language. Some more examples are there in the next slide. On my left side of the slide, you will have examples written in red, and that is all spoken examples, and the one on the right, the written examples. You will see the difference between academic speaking and academic writing. The spoken academic context speech is like this. Whenever I had visited there before, I had ended up feeling that it would be futile if I tried to do anything more. Now, you express that differently in academic writing. Every previous visit had left me with a sense of the futility of further action on my part. So you see all the features that contribute to the complexity are there. The cities in Switzerland had once been peaceful, but they changed when people became violent. The violence changed the face of once peaceful Swiss cities. So again, use of adjectival phrases. Third example, because the technology has improved, it's less risky than it used to be when you install them at the same time, and doesn't cost so much either. Typical spoken sentence. And the written variant will be like this. Improvements in technology have reduced the risks and high costs associated with simultaneous installation. When you actually read out or speak the written variety, it sounds a bit odd. It smoothly agrees with the spoken variety when you actually read out and speak, but in writing, there is that X factor of density, of complexity. Last example here, the spoken variety. People in the colony rejoiced when it was promised that things would change in this way. Written variant. Opinion in the colony greeted the promised change with enthusiasm. So some more examples you have there. Let me now move on to the next slide. Yeah, this is feature 2. This is formality. Formality in the sense your writing is never casual, your writing is never informal, never tentative, or never direct or rude. Writing is relatively formal. So in general, this means that in an essay you should avoid colloquial words and expressions. In general, this means in an essay that you should avoid examples, words like expressions like stuff, a lot of, that thing, this thing, sort of. This is typical spoken, you should avoid. It's not formal language. Then you should also avoid abbreviated forms like can't or doesn't or shouldn't. This is again a typical contraction that you use in spoken, not in academic writing. Then phrasal verbs like put off or bring up, 2-word verbs, you don't use in academic writing. Then subheadings, numbering, and bullet points in formal essays, but use them in reports. Yeah, you don't use subheadings, numbering, and bullet points in formal essays, except of course the other academic writing of report. In reports you use, but generally you don't use too many of these in academic writing forms. Then you don't ask questions. In academic writing, you don't begin by asking questions like the way you are free to ask questions in your in your oral presentation. Let me move on. We come to the third feature, that is precision. In academic writing, facts and figures are given precisely. You need to be precise when you use information, because you cannot give wrong dates and wrong figures. And also you should not use vague expressions like a lot of people when you can say 50 million people. When you know the figure, you have to mention that. Another example, chemists had attempted to synthesize quinine for the previous 100 years, but all they had achieved was to discover the extremely extreme complexity of the problem. That's a typical spoken. Now, the same thing you can, the same kind of a subject, you can see the difference in the academic writing example. The volatile oily liquid beta-chloro-beta-ethyl sulfide was first synthesized in 1854, and in 1887 it was reported to produce blisters if it touched the skin. It was called mustard gas and was used as viperous in 1917, when it caused many thousands of casualties. So lots of precision is there in terms of figures, in terms of the names of the chemicals, and also in terms of the place. Okay. We also have the fourth feature. This is
I'm sorry, sir. I'm sorry once
Yes.
again. Sorry for interruption. Swapna Pandey, I request you to stop presenting. Swapna Pandey, ma'am, please stop presenting. Swapna Pandey, you are still presenting. Please opt for stop presenting, ma'am.
Please don't disturb.
Swapna Pandey, can you hear us?
Yeah, I think she's new. Hello.
Hello, sir, ma'am. Can you hear me? Hello?
Who, me?
Yes,
Hello.
yes, ma'am. We can hear you, Swapna Pandey. We can hear you.
No, actually, I'm not Sapna Pandey, but we can do one thing. We can just go to the people's option, and then we can scroll down and go to Sir Professor his name, and then we can pin him to our screen. Then even if like somebody is presenting, it won't interrupt.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, pin.
Sorry to interrupt. I'm just participant.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yes, sir, you are visible now. The presentation is not visible, sir. Thank you.
Okay. I'm visible,
Yes, sir.
but I have to do it again.
Start presenting the screen, sir.
Yeah, I'm doing it. Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think you can prevent that kind of those interruptions by going to them, and you can also mute what is unexpectedly, inadvertently opened. And maybe you can also try this pinning my screen. Shall I continue now? Hello.
Yes, sir. You can continue.
Yeah. Yeah, we come to the fourth feature of academic writing. This is objectivity. You can never be you cannot be subjective at all in academic writing. Your opinions don't matter, your feelings don't matter. You need to put it very intellectually, very academically, and in a very evidence-based, research-based kind of a writing. Written language is in general objective rather than personal. So there are less words that refer to the writer or the reader. You don't use words like I, we feel, and you should, you all should. These are avoided in academic writing. This means that the main emphasis should be on the information that you want to give and the arguments you want to make rather than you or the listener. For that reason, academic writing tends to use nouns and adjectives rather than verbs and adverbs. This is now we can link up to the point that we mentioned earlier. The more of the use of nouns and adjectives rather than verbs and adverbs, because the focus is not on the person or the personal opinions, but on the event or on the facts. Okay, in this slide, uh, again, we are continuing that objectivity. This objectivity matters because it's linked to the basic nature of academic study and academic writing. Nobody really wants to know what you think or believe, as I said earlier. They want to know what you have studied and learned and how this has led you to your various conclusions. The thoughts and beliefs should be based on your lectures, reading, discussion, and research. It's important to make this clear. So everything should be evidence-based, research-based, discussion-based, not opinionated kind of statements. Opinionated statements are there, they sound okay in the spoken mode, but not in the written mode, because you're committing yourself to writing. And it has to be based on evidence or research. Shall I move to my next slide?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now compare these two paragraphs. Uh, the first one is written. There's a lot of objectivity here, and the second one in red is slightly subjective. You'll clearly see the difference between academic speaking and academic writing. The question of what constitutes language proficiency and the nature of its cross-lingual dimensions is also at the core of many hotly debated issues in the areas of bilingual education and second language pedagogy and testing. Researchers have suggested ways of making second language teaching and testing more communicative. Example, Kenal and Swain, 1980, Aller, 1979b, on the grounds that a communicative approach better reflects the nature of language proficiency than one which emphasizes the acquisition of discrete language skills. So you see, typical academic writing is like this. Whatever features till now we have discussed, you will find them, including mentioning the references, very objective, putting within quotes. The same thing you can casually talk about it in the spoken. We don't really know what language proficiency is, but many people have talked about it for a long time. Some researchers have tried to find ways for us to make teaching and testing more communicative, because that's how language works. I think that language is something we use for communicating, not an object for us to study and remember. We remember that when we teach and test it. So a very casual way of saying the same. Okay. In general, again, we are still discussing the feature of objectivity. In general, avoid words like I, me, myself. A reader will normally assume that any idea not referenced is your own. When you don't give a reference, the rest of those statements are normally ascribed to the writer. So you don't have to say I, me, myself. It is therefore unnecessary to make this explicit. Only here that you shouldn't be explicit in writing. Don't write, in my opinion, this is a very interesting study, but you should write this way. This is a very interesting study. Avoid you to refer to the reader or people in general. Don't write, you can easily forget how different life was 50 years ago. You should, on the other hand, write it like this. It's easy to forget how difficult life was 50 years ago. There's a formality there in writing. And also the objectivity. Some more examples. Clearly, this was far less true of France than Italy. These are all like good examples of academic writing. This is where the disagreements and controversies begin. The data indicates that research-based. This is not a view shared by everyone. Jones, for example, claims that. Very few people would claim that. It's worthwhile at this stage to consider. Of course, more concrete evidence is needed before. Several possibilities emerge. A common solution is. So these are all good examples of objectivity in writing, which contributes to effective academic writing. Let me move on. I'll come to the fifth feature. This is explicitness. Academic writing is explicit about the relationships in the text. Also, it is the responsibility of the writer in English to make it clear to the reader how the various parts of a text are related. These connections can be made explicit by the use of different supporting signposting words. Different, signposting words are linkers or, signal words, which give the reader indication that something is, some direction is being made, some changes being made. So there's some kind of a subtopic that is coming up. So signposting words. For example, if you want to tell your reader that your line of argument is going to change, make it very clear. Now look at this example. The Bristol 167 was to be Britain's great new advance on American types such as the Lockheed Constellation and Douglas DC-6, which did not have the range to fly the Atlantic non-stop. It was also to be the largest aircraft ever built in Britain. Now, however, even by the end of the war, the design had encountered serious difficulties. Now, this is about aircraft which Britain was planning to launch in a big way, Bristol 167, which would be a much better version of the American types, and also which had the capacity to cross the Atlantic non-stop. And it would have been the largest aircraft ever built in Britain. Now, this word, however, is a very important signposting word, linker, which tells the reader and makes him anticipate that something changed from the whole plan. Even by the end of the war, the design had encountered serious difficulties and it never took off. That model never came out. So it's a very simple word, but very effective, and it makes your writing very, very precise. Explicit. If you think that one sentence gives reasons for something in another sentence, make it very explicit. While an earlier generation, look at this example, while an earlier generation of writers had noted this feature of the period, it was not until the recent work of Cairncross that the significance of this outflow was realized. Partly this was because the current account deficit appears much smaller in current data than it was thought to be by contemporaries. So again, the use of words like while, until, partly, than it was thought to be, they're very important markers, signposts, which make it easy for the reader to understand the writing. The whole idea is not to bamboozle or confuse the reader. The whole idea of making it precise, objective, or even complex is to make it actually simple for understanding of the reader. So signpost words, markers like this help in the reader's understanding. I'll move on. If you think two ideas are almost the same, say so. So, like these two paragraphs, you'll see the difference. Marx referred throughout his work to other systems than the capitalist system, especially those which he knew from the history of Europe to have preceded capitalism. Systems such as feudalism, where the relation of production was characterized by the personal relation of the feudal lord and a serf, and a relation of subordination which came from the lord's control of the land. Now, this is not very precise what you're trying to say. You're saying something in too many words, but if you have to be precise, you will say something, you'll write something like this here in the second paragraph. Similarly, Marx was interested in slavery and in the classical Indian and Chinese social systems, or in those systems where the ties of local community are all very important. So this is the difference that you will find in academic writing: precision. Now let us move on to the sixth feature, accuracy. In academic writing, you need to be very accurate in the use of your vocabulary. You cannot very indiscreetly use high-flown vocabulary or technical vocabulary in a very casual manner. For example, many people do this. They use phonetics, phonology, or grammar and syntax very in a synonymous way, but there is a technical difference. It's not accurate to be using them as synonyms. Phonetics, as you know, is the study of the sounds of a language. Phonology is a comparative study of different languages. Grammar is parts of speech and such discrete items, but syntax is connected grammar. So there is a technical difference. So also you need to use the correct word when you're referring to group of people, whether it's a meeting that you're talking about, or an assembly, or a gathering, or a conference, or a mob. So accuracy is very important. You should also know, commerce people would know this, difference between money, cash, currency, capital, or funds. Again, lending accuracy. If you choose the right one, you're being accurate. Academic writing uses vocabulary.
It's audible.
Yeah, I hear some voice.
Sorry, sir. Sorry.
Shall I continue? Academic writing uses vocabulary accurately. Most subjects have words with narrow specific meanings. Linguistics distinguishes clearly between phonetics and phonemics. You have phonetics and phonemics is at the level of individual sound. Like you have allophones, you have the difference between per and fur, or like bur and per, and you have the aspirated and the unaspirated sound, and phonetics is a general word. So in general English, they will use these two words synonymously, but linguistics, the linguists would use it discretely, accurately, whether he means to use phonetics or he means to use the word phonemics or phonology. So that is accuracy in writing. Now let us move on to the seventh feature, hedging. As I said, hedging is cautious, careful language. In any kind of academic writing you do, it's necessary to make decisions about your stance on a particular subject. You cannot always remain neutral or remain like a cat on the wall. You need to take a stance, a particular perspective, and commit yourself to that. But while doing, you need to base it on the strength of your claims, and different subjects prefer to do this in different ways. A technique that is common to convey your position in academic writing is known by linguists as hedging, or to hedge. Now look at this example of hedging. It is often believed that academic writing, particularly scientific writing, is factual simply to convey facts and information. However, it is now recognized that an important feature of academic writing is the concept of conscious language, often called hedging or vague language. Now, this is a very interesting example that I have put here. It's a paragraph that is talking about hedging, defining what cautious language is. It is also put in a very hedgy kind of a language. The whole paragraph is a good example of hedging. So you see, it is often believed. So you're not saying it is academic writing. You're not beginning bluntly like saying academic writing is factual simply to convey facts and information. but you said it is often believed, but then you're also using a very cautious language, like however, it is now recognized that the concept of cautious language is important, hedging or vague language. See, there is an apparent contradiction between being precise, between being objective, and the use of hedging. But good writers who are good at academic writing make the necessary balance, make the necessary adjustments. Now, I've given some examples here of introductory verbs which will come handy to hedge. There are like seem, tend, look like, appear to be, think, believe, doubt, be sure, indicate, suggest. Certain lexical verbs like believe, assume, suggest. Certain modal verbs like must, would, may, might. Also, adverbs of frequency like often, sometimes, usually. Modal adverbs like certainly, definitely, probably, conceivably. Modal adjectives like certain, definite, clear, probable, possible. Modal nouns like assumption, possibility, probability. That clauses that begin with that. It could be the case that. It might be suggested that. There is every hope that. Then adjective plus the to clause. It may be possible to obtain. It is important to develop. It is useful to study. Now, all these are very good gambits, very good language items that are useful in making your academic write more full of hedging. If not full of hedging, at important places, you need to hedge and not take the whole burden of a stance on yourself. So it's these are very useful expressions that help you hedge, and because hedging is so vital in academic writing. Let me move on. Yeah. Some more example of hedging. Look at the ones in green. The ones in green are said to be sentences, are academic sentences where hedging has taken place. The one in the black font is without hedging. You see the difference. It may be said that commitment to some of the social and economic concepts was less strong than it is now. The difference is the use of the expression it may be said. The remaining sentence is the same. The commitment to some of the social and economic concepts was less strong than it is now. Then similarly, a blunt way of writing will be the lives they chose seem overly ascetic and self-denying to most women today. Now, if you have to hedge and say that sentence, the lives they chose may seem itself is tentative, but when you write may seem, you're actually hedging. That's a good way to use a cautious language, which is so important in today's academic writing. Now, let us come to the last feature. This is responsibility. In academic writing, one must account for what one is writing. You must be responsible for and must be able to provide evidence and justification for any claims that you make. You're also responsible for demonstrating an understanding of any source text you use. Like in academic writing, you're responsible for demonstrating an understanding of the source text. You must also be responsible for and must be able to provide evidence and justification for any claims that you make. And generally, this is done by paraphrasing and summarizing what you read and acknowledging the source of this information or ideas by system of citation. So you can either directly quote or you can paraphrase and then you can cite the sources. So this is responsibility. You're not trying to make it, you're not trying to cheat on the system. You're staying away from plagiarism, the whole act of academic copying. So when you want to be away from plagiarism, when you want to make your academic writing very like a role model and very effective, then you have to bring in the factor of responsibility, feature of responsibility in your writing. Okay, now these are the 8 features that we have discussed that contribute to effective academic writing. Okay, how much time we have?
So 45 minutes more, sir.
Okay. So participants, this is about the 8 features that we have seen which contribute to writing and good effective academic writing. Let me now move on to certain common errors that people tend to make in the use of English, especially in writing. They also do it in the spoken mode, but it happens very much in writing. Now, first category of errors which one need to be very conscious: the wrong use of prepositions or prepositional phrases and certain expressions, like unnecessary use of prepositions. The manager admired, look at the first example, the manager admired for our home guard's behavior. This is a typical mother tongue interference. Most of our Indian languages, there is a tendency to use differently. So that mother tongue language, the syntax of the mother tongue tends to influence our English grammar, and we use a preposition where it is not necessary. But the manager admired our home guard's bravery is right. Similarly, the security admitted him in. Admit itself as somebody coming in, that kind of a nuance. So we don't have to write in. They hope you would answer their request soon. No need for to. My cousin approached me for help. No need to say approached to me. The boss asked the clerk why she was late, not asked to the clerk. The leaders attacked the chairman's views, not attacked upon. The guard was awarded a cash prize for his alertness, not awarded with. The company could not bear up the burden of heavy taxes. Bear up is not necessary. Bear the burden of heavy taxes. Computers have greatly benefited the communication network in the country. Right now, we are being benefited by the computer revolutions. So benefited to the communication network too is not necessary. The management refused to bow to the workers' demands. Now, there is again the tendency to use bow down. Bow itself has the sense of somebody going down, bodily going down. So you don't have to say bow down. It's like saying returning back. You don't say back when you say return. So this is unnecessary use of preposition. If you have any doubt, you can just make a note of it, and we can get back. We can talk about it at the end. Now, there is another area of common mistakes that many of our students and some of our colleagues also do. We need to be alert to these. They omit prepositions where it is necessary to write. For example, that is an idea we fully agree with. We fully agree. They leave it at that without using with. Similarly, she came and asked for the car, not asked the car. It's almost like you're talking to the car. She came and asked for the car. The manager assured us of loan. We will have to bear her short temper. We'll have to bear with her. Bear with. That's a phrasal verb. Prepositional phrase also. So the use of with there. Would you care for some tea, for some juice? Care for? We could not convey to him. They have to explain to us the problem. If they go there, they will have to put up with many difficulties. Presented him with an expensive gift. Not presented him an expensive. Presented him with. They will write to us again soon. Not they'll write us again soon. Okay, let me move on. Then there is the use of the wrong preposition. This is again another set of errors that we normally come across in writing as well as in speech. She was trying to aim her remarks against a friend, not against, but at. My boss is angry against me. No, angry with me. That child is bad, not in spelling, because we say spelling mein kharab hai or spelling lo not good. So that child is bad at spelling. That manager has great confidence in his secretary, not about his secretary. She is very good at tennis, not in tennis. That thief confessed to his crime, not confessed about. That staff member has been charged with misappropriation, not charged off. The boy is suffering from malaria, not suffering with malaria. Not like along with malaria, along with him, malaria is also suffering. It's not like that. We want to dispense with his services. Will you sign the document in it? Okay, can I continue?
Yes, sir.
Another common area where our students have problem, and also in even adult users of English, there's a very important area of tenses. They tend to write, I am hearing that you're leaving for West Indies next month, instead of saying I hear. He's forgetting to do his duties. No, he forgets to do his duties. We are thinking of holding the tournament next month. We think to hold. No, they have booked our ticket. When you are using a simple past tense marker like yesterday, you can't use have booked. Simple past, booked is enough. He's playing cricket from his 6th class. He has been playing. It happened when I was standing in the when I stood. Ask him about the document when he will. Ask him about the document when he arrives, not when he will arrive. On Sunday next week, I am going to eat. I'm understanding the lecture with some effort. I understand. Not some of these actions don't take continuous ing. She's remembering me. No, she remembers me. She loves a friend, not she's loving. I'm having a headache. No, I have a headache. They say I'm having a car. No, I have a car. When you say having, you use it for experiences like having, some kind of a, not for possessions. I'm having a bath, you can say, but I'm having lunch. So these are some of the common things which you have to keep in mind. Also, certain wrong words like she refuses to listen to me. Instead of listen to, they use hear me. I like the travel a lot. I like the journey. And the confusion between affect and effect. Doesn't seem to take care of his vehicle, not care for his vehicle. No one of the letters has reached in time. None of the letters. Effective, efficient. Medicines cannot be efficient. Medicines have to be effective. she didn't do this mistake. No, she didn't make this mistake or commit this mistake. You wanted to know the latest, not last code. The difference between principles and principle, and sometimes and we shall discuss the issue sometime tomorrow. They shall do all the arrangements. They make all the arrangements. Wide agreement, no. Broad agreement. Refused. He denied to accept the gift. No, he refused to accept. Of course, the difference between release and discharge. The patient was discharged. The prisoners are released. This soldier is working on the boundary, not on the boundary, but on the border of the country. So things like that. These are collocations. Only some words will go, but you don't say boundary of the country, you say border of the country. That is acceptable. Okay. Then there is the question of wrong agreement also. This happens in both spoken and written. He doesn't know the problems. There's a tendency to use he don't, they don't, they doesn't, they say. I don't, instead of that, they say I doesn't, you doesn't know, you don't. They always does like that. They always do like that. This is a problem of agreement. Yeah, I put that in columns. Yeah, I think I'll stop there. I have some books to mention, important books for academic writing. We'll make a note of this. This is one book by Stephen Bailey, Academic Writing, a handbook for international students. Then there is Successful Academic Writing, Hammond and Bartala. Narayan Swami, V.R. Narayan, Strengthen Your Writing. It's a very old book, but very, very clearly written. Then you have Moripalli and Pawar's Academic Writing, a guide for management students and researchers. Very clear explication of academic writing. So I think I'll stop there and I'll take some queries if you have. Vinay and Manjulatha, Grace, who is there? Hello.
Sir.
Yeah, I can take some questions. I have formally ended the session. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sir, one participant by name Murali asked a question.
There is a resound, madam. There's a resound.
Okay, sir. Is it clear now, sir?
Yeah, your voice is clear.
Yeah, we already have two questions here, sir.
Yeah.
So the participant named Simi Chowdhury has posted a question. Sir, you mentioned the necessary balance between precision and hedging. Can the balance point differ from writer to writer? If yes, how can we determine a standard balance between these two factors?
Yeah, it varies. That how they balance precision and hedging depends very much on, again, the writer's competence, the subject that they are dealing, and what kind of a readers the writer is anticipating the stuff to be read by. So all these factors also have to be kept in mind. But having done so, one may still slightly miss out on the balance, or one may strike the exact balance. One may also, you cannot always use more of hedging also. You need to be accurate somewhere. You need to be precise also. So it's a very relative kind of a thing. This use of caution in language is also stems from academic humility. When you're making statements, you do not want to sound very pompous, very classically scholarly. You don't want to sound as a highbrow kind of an intellectual. You want to feel grounded, you want to feel down to earth, and then still convey your opinions. That is the time when you take to cautious language. Like there are writers who throw all hedging to winds. They are very brazen in their opinion, and they lose out on objectivity. They become very subjective in their writing. So it's a question of how much proportion. I hope I made the clarity. I clarified that.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Shall we take the next question, sir?
Yes.
So the participant named Gurudev Kushal. How can one master all the features of academic writing? Is there any systematic procedure to practice these features?
See, all skill-based talents have to be acquired through rigorous practice and through observation, through reading. Reading good academic writing is one way to expose yourself to good specimen, good examples of academic writing. And then after reading and after sufficiently getting exposed to effective academic writing, when one is actually writing, one has to be aware of those factors and bring in those all the features into play. So it is a gradual process, doesn't happen overnight. And I'm sure most of the people on the panel, on the line also, they have quite a few of these skills. Some of them may have all the skills, all the features of academic writing they may be utilizing. But it's important to be conscious and keep improving ourselves at writing better and better.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Especially for engineering students, they study in
Madam, it's not clear. You're audible, but you're not intelligible. Clarity. I think you need to. Yeah. Now I can. Yeah, go on.
Coming to this engineering students, they study letter writing, report writing, essay writing, summary writing, all this.
Vinay, could you make out what her question was? Madam, better if you just express your query in writing. We can check.
Hello, sir. Hello,
Yes.
sir. Is it clear now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Sir, the students, those who are from regional medium background, those who have studied in Telugu medium especially, they face a lot of problem. And could you please suggest any simple method, any easy strategy with which we can help the students improve their academic writing skills? Because they have letter writing, paragraph writing, essay writing, report writing, all this. So how to improve this? Any simple way?
Most of academic writing covers all these formats which you have mentioned, except of course report writing, which is also academic writing, but there you use subheadings and bulleted points. That's the only difference. But most of these formats that you mentioned are good samples of academic writing. So as I said, there are no simple ways, madam. One has to work hard. One has to expose oneself to good academic writing in any format. It could be a good an official letter. It could be a good report. It could be a wonderful essay written on a very interesting academic subject. So constant reading and internalizing the style, internalizing the vocabulary necessary for academic writing, and slowly one internalizes the style. You will know, they will know by instinct what to avoid. This whole idea of using, They will give up using very personalized opinions, use of I, me, myself, or you, or feeling, opinions, how to make it more accurate, how to take responsibility for the statements that you're making. This is something that doesn't happen in a simple way. It comes the hard way. Let me be very frank. There is no simple way of learning this. It comes through exposure and practice.
So is it also important to teach students about the punctuation marks?
Can you repeat that, ma'am?
Sir, I'm asking you, even in academic writing also, we cannot ignore or overlook the importance of punctuation marks. Is it
Yes.
necessary to teach students about these punctuation marks even at the level of engineering or any graduation?
Oh yes, oh yes. See, I didn't go into punctuations, but punctuations are very important. See, I did not want to cover, individual aspects like grammar or vocabulary or punctuation or handwriting, the mechanics of writing or syntax. I mentioned basically the features and some examples I've taken, but there is you cannot underplay the importance of the use of correct punctuation. It's of course very important in writing, and that needs to be taught to them.
Okay, sir.
Okay, sir,
Thank you.
thank you.
So the last question, sir.
Yes.
Someone named Aisha Abbas. Sir, some academicians are now of a notion that academic writing should be simpler. So what is your opinion?
Simpler. Who are these people who are saying this?
Some academicians, he says.
Yeah, simpler in the sense that probably what they mean is it should be easier for the readers to understand. But at the same time, you cannot also use frivolous vocabulary. You also cannot use a light kind of a language. For example, if you want to talk about evidence, if you want to talk about citations, you want to talk about quoting something, you cannot say what is the proof. Now, you cannot use give us the proof. You cannot mention assume a style like that. You have to use evidence for formal writing. The word evidence or citations or references. This is acceptable in academic context. So there's no question of making it deliberately simplistic. Yeah, simple has value from the perspective of the reader's understanding. The whole idea of making a distinct discussion about academic writing is they will not make it a frivolous, non-academic kind of writing. They will also make it a discipline by itself. It's already a discipline. They sustain the dynamics involved in academic writing and also facilitate easy and simple understanding by the on the part of the readers. So in that sense, yes, it should be simple for understanding, not simple for writing, not simplistic or frivolous kind of writing.
Okay, sir. Shall we take the last question of the session, sir?
Okay.
So Neha Singh, how can one pose a question in academic writing, and what approach one should have in answering existing questions?
Normally, you avoid posing questions in academic writing. Normally, that is done more in oral presentations. But if you feel compelled to begin your academic writing by a query, you might do in a very, very formal kind of interrogation. You can avoid questions beginning with WH words. We can use more of possibilities, can we or should we, instead of saying what is, what do you think. So again, informality has to be avoided, direct address to the readers has to be avoided. The questions have to be more intellectual in style. more of passives, more of objectivity in the questions, not undercurrent of opinion. Sometimes you ask a question just to start expressing your opinions. So those undercurrents should not be there. But in most contexts of academic writing, it's important to avoid questions. You can put it indirectly, but many people have the doubts, have expressed doubts about certain things. But we might go by based on the current research that is being done. We can conclude, or we can easily come to an understanding about certain developments. So it's like that. It's a very formal, non-personal kind of a query, can be used occasionally, not always. I hope I clarified that.
Thank you very much, sir, for your most useful presentation, sir.
Okay,
And
thank you.
Thank you once again.
So let me also thank all the participants, the teacher participants. I think all of them are teachers. So are they, or are there some?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All research scholars and faculty of English.
Yeah,
Sir.
I thank all the research scholars and teachers who have been patiently listening for the last 1.5 to 2 hours.
Yes,
And
sir.
it's important to be part of this paradigm shift that all of us, all academy across the world is making. There are certain limitations to this paradigm shift coming online, but there is a lot to gain from. There's a lot for every one of us. It's a big learning curve, and we should be doing these activities with an open mind. And of course, you have practical benefits also, many of us, but